Good morning and welcome to Boston Outlook. I'm your host, Julee Marra. On the line with us this morning is Dr. Buck Blodgett. He is the author of A Message from Jessie, and you are the founder of the Love is Greater Than Hate Project. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me on your show.
I feel like I already know you because behind the scenes over here, we've been trying to connect for probably about a month. And we've talked a few times, off air. But here we are today, and you're going to share your story about your daughter, Jessie.
Yes, Jess and I are thrilled to be on your show. I feel like I already know you too, and I can't wait to share a little bit about her mission and her messages.
Absolutely. So that's what you're going to share with us right now. Where do you want to start?
Oh boy, your show. You let me know where to start. I could let you know what happened if people want the background of what happened.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a good thing because, it led you to creating an organization, which then led you to writing a book. I'm hoping I have that in the right order. But nonetheless, that this is done in the memory of your daughter, who really, your family had faced a very tragic situation. So why don't we start there?
Okay. I should give a trigger warning to our listeners this morning. It's a little graphic and disturbing, but it's important, and it's important to talk about. It's important to bring to the light of day. So that's why I do what I do and why I'm on your show this morning. 6 years and 18 days ago, on a Monday morning at about 9 o'clock, we think, soon after my wife Joy and I had both gone to work, and our 19-year-old daughter, Jess, was home alone, sleeping peacefully in her own bed. A friend of Jessie's, who she knew for 4 years, sat right next to each other, first and second chair violin in the orchestra, and many other school things together. Welcome in our home. He came in and he executed a well-planned attack. He attacked Jess in her sleep. He hog-tied her, gag-balled her, tape around her face and head to hold it. And then he raped Jessie. And then he pulled a rope out of his backpack and he put it around her neck and he strangled her to death. And then he cleaned up the scene and went to the park. So that's what happened. That was the initiating event for our Love is Greater Than Hate project. And her Jessie's mission, ironically in life, male on female violence was Jessie's cause. And then it became mine when she passed.
So this was something that she was already trying to, raise awareness about and make a change.
It was. She was really passionate. I worried a little bit about her sometimes. Her and I walked and talked every day. I loved her so much. It was the best part of my days was taking a little walk with the dog and Jess. And she tried to tell me about it. And she told me that 1 out of 3 of our girls and women will be sexually assaulted in one way, shape, or form in their lifetime, and 1 out of 4 domestic violence, and 1 out of 6 of our boys sexual assault, and 1 out of 7 of our boys domestic violence, and 10 girls or women are killed every day, 10 more Jessies every day in my country, in your country. And she was very passionate about doing something about that, and so am I now.
So how did she, get so involved with knowing those statistics, and what was her interest? Was there something that was maybe talked about at school or with friends, or what was kind of the driving force behind the work that she was setting out to do and wanted to do?
Oh my gosh, there's so many backstories here. My biggest challenge, how do you possibly share the life of a person in a brief interview, but yeah. She had a history of causes. And I got to watch, as her dad, the most beautiful thing. In 6th grade, she found PETA online, and I got to watch her social conscience just blossom and then kind of explode. And she was this little girl, and just one of her teachers described her something as a little girl with a heart the size of the Atlantic Ocean. And that was her. And first it was the ethical treatment of animals. And she was at lunch one day in 7th grade, and one of her buddies declared their table the hotties. And it was the worst the next 2 months of Jessie's life, because she came home and she just couldn't understand why the hotties just wanted to be popular and they didn't care about the ethical treatment of animals. And then it went to vegetarianism and then Buddhism because of their reverence for every living thing. And then she asked to be baptized and became Christian. And then she became an atheist at age 16. And her last and biggest cause in life was male-on-female violence.
And I like that the male component comes into this too, because so often we focus on women's violence, and as important as obviously that is, to see that there's also a need for awareness around the male, violence too, is really important. Well,
it's so important, Julie. There's an old saying that hurt boys become hurt men and hurt others. And that's really where it starts many times, a brokenness in childhood.
Right. So for someone so young to have really, she lived a lot, in those 19 years. I don't know her, but just hearing that description from 6th grade on, I mean, what a very mature little girl.
She was. It was, I'm her dad, and you're only going to get the best stories. First of all, she wasn't perfect. She, like all of us, she had her flaws and her weak spots and whatnot. But it was almost, looking back, it was almost like she somehow sensed that she was going to have less time than the average person, because she just had a huge circle and packed so much into 19 years. So many friends. People came out of the woodwork after she was murdered that I had no idea she knew. People from all over the state, different places. I don't know how she even connected with them. Just a big shadow, a big reach.
Truly, truly amazing. There's so many questions that I want to ask you. I guess I'll start with, kind of the evolution of how this tragedy turned into the organization, which is known as the Love is Greater Than Hate Project.
Well, at Jessie's funeral, I stood up and said, honey, this has been a devastating blow, but your strength is in me too, and love will always be stronger than hate. And at the time, didn't know why I said that or where those words came from. I feel like I do now. I feel like they didn't come from me. I feel like they came from a higher place, and they came to me and for me and through me and for everyone with ears to hear that love is greater than hate. Anyway, a month later, 500 people in our small town showed up at the mill pond, and everybody lit candles and walked for 2 hours around the path, and there's signs all along the path volunteers had spent days on. And there was a big banner on the pavilion in the park that somebody obviously spent hours on, and everyone had a blue wristband on that Lori, one of our friends, without us even knowing, spent $450 of her own money on, all of which, the wristbands, the banner, the signs, all said, love is greater than hate. That night, Love is Greater Than Hate kind of exploded on our social media, on Facebook and YouTube, and then on the 10 o'clock news on all 4 news channels in Milwaukee. And that night I knew that something was happening, and that a project was trying to be born, and it was her legacy project, and that I was supposed to do something about it. And I think all of us are, because one guy isn't going to do anything. This is going to take all of us, this culture transformation and ending violence.
When did it start? How long has the organization been up and running?
Well, we got our official nonprofit status, which takes a while. Anyone who's ever tried to form a nonprofit knows. January 2015. So we're about 4.5 years old. Okay.
So 4.5 years in. So you've been up and running. You've evolved. Where are you today? How far have you come since its inception?
Well, we do 3 things, and that'll probably answer your question if I describe them as briefly as I can. First, I've done over 100 presentations of A Message from Jessie now in 6 states for 13,000 people. Most of them in the last 2 years, we focused on the Wisconsin State Prison System. We've done about 24 for about 3,000 of our inmates and staff here in Wisconsin. We also do a lot of media outreach. So we're on a radio campaign right now. We'll do 15 live interviews and reach probably a few 100,000 people around the United States over the next few months. And print campaign, we're in the first month of our new print campaign, and we have been picked up by 6 online magazines with a readership of about 1.7 million. We have 4 made-for-TV documentary films, including Dateline, which have replayed many times since Dateline came out in January 2015 and have been seen by tens of millions of people on 5 continents. And then the best thing we do, Julie, is we have a local project at Jesse's High School to produce measurable change. We're trying to measurably decrease interpersonal violence, which is domestic violence, dating violence, bullying, human trafficking, and sexual violence. And if we can do that, when we do that, however long that takes to get a successful, proven model, we'll then, phase 2 will be to share that model everywhere. So that's what we do. That's how far we've come in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You're hitting all the right places, it seems like. You know, you're starting at young ages, at that, you know, kind of crucial point when adolescents become adults, you know, getting the message into them at that right point. It's interesting, too, that you visit the prisons. How is that, how has that experience been?
Well, first about young people, I just have to say, I watched PETA just grab Jesse at age 12, and I saw, I don't know, I learned a long time ago not to get into discussions about PETA because it's a little bit of a polarized topic, like some others in our world today, but I saw the power of capturing a young mind and heart, and they did it well, and so I know we have to do that, too, with this issue. And so we're trying with the local project. Prisons, it's weirdly for me, it's become my favorite thing to do and my favorite places to go. I don't know how to explain that. A lot of people I talk to say things like, let them rot. They put themselves in there, etc. And they did. And we talk about that. And I find many of our inmates thirsty to change and aware that they've screwed up bad and hurt people and themselves and their lives, and or feel like they're wasting their lives and really want an opportunity to change course. And so they have great programs in prison. They have anger management, thinking for change, domestic violence, sex offender programs, drug and alcohol programs. My job with a message from Jesse is to challenge them, motivate them, kick their butts around the block a little bit in a manly kind of a good way that they resonate with and that inspires them and calls to them to engage in their programs next level and make it happen in their life. So when they get out, they make the world a better place, not a worse place because they were here.
Have you seen any success come out of that?
First of all, I'm under no delusions that a 1-hour presentation is going to change criminal behavior en masse for a lifetime. And second of all, we have got to get to a point where we measure, and we're not there yet. But third of all, as we go around this year to prisons we did last year, we are hearing more and more anecdotal stories. My favorite one comes out of Prairie du Chien Correctional in Wisconsin, where an inmate stood up last year after a message from Jesse. We do a live Q&A after. It's the best part. We just talk for an hour. And this guy said what a lot of people think but don't say. And, like all of us, they don't always have the best filters. And he stands up and he looks at the dad of a murdered girl who just poured his heart out to him and says, I don't believe you. I don't believe you really forgave your daughter's killer. I don't believe you could. I don't believe you would. And I'll tell you what, if it was me, I never could. And even if I could, I wouldn't. To which I said something like, dude, I didn't drive all the way across this state today and walk into your prison that you put yourself in to do anything I could to impact your life in a positive way and have you tell me that you can't and you won't. We need you. You're getting out of here. at some point, and your calling needs you to answer it. And that was the beginning of a conversation. End result was we go back this year, and Prairie du Chien has started their own program after a message from Jesse. They call it the Forgiveness Class, and guess who the inmate leader of the Forgiveness Class at Prairie du Chien Correctional was?
Wow. Was it the man?
It was him.
Yep.
It was him. He came again to the second presentation, even though he saw the first one. He stood up and engaged in the Q&A after, even though he did that the first time. He told me he's leading that program now. And, no measurable change yet, but we can tell from anecdotal stories that there's significant impact. And the staff tells us about environmental change at the prison, too. So coupled with their programming and repetition, these guys, most of them are getting out. These are the guys we most have to reach. Many of them have violence offenses, sex offenses, drug and alcohol, which is intimately connected with both. So this is the population we most have to reach.
We're chatting with Dr. Buck Blodgett. He is the author of A Message from Jesse and the founder of the Love is Greater Than Hate project. So school visits, media outreach, prison visits, then the whole idea of taking your story and putting it into a book. Obviously these are different avenues that you have taken personally and, in terms of the organization as well. How do you get that down into the book? I mean, that process must be so different than gearing yourself up for something like our conversation this morning and for the conversations that you have in the schools and in prisons.
Yeah, the book was different. I don't aspire to be an author, I don't consider myself an author, don't want to write another one. People keep asking for another one, and I'm like, well, nothing else has happened. What am I going to write about? I'm not an author, I don't think, but the book wrote itself. It was crazy. I just felt, when this happened, Julie, it was such a lightning bolt that just blasted me out of my regular life. For 53 years, you kind of fall into patterns and ruts and trenches in life, and this just launched me out of that. And every second became precious. Every person became sacred. Every word out of everyone's mouth mattered. And I have no words to explain it, but when we lost Jess, it was a crazy tragedy and blessing at the same time in a strange way. And there was just a story in me. And for 15 months until the trial was over, we couldn't talk. And the DA didn't issue a gag order, but he explained why we shouldn't, and he was right, and we didn't want to jeopardize the case. We held everything inside for 15 months. It exploded out of me when the time came when we could talk. I needed to be Jessie's voice. I wanted to be not only her voice, but voice for her issue and her mission and victims everywhere. So the book, I feel like the book wrote itself, really.
I always wonder when non-authors then turn their story into books. It's like, how does that happen? Do you literally just get a notepad and start writing and then send it off to an editor? Or in your case... I
sat down on my laptop and it just went. And it was easy for me because it was just a chronology of the facts. The book starts when I'm sitting exactly where I'm sitting right now on my phone in my back office at our chiropractic and wellness group outside of Milwaukee. And I got the phone call from my wife, Joy. And the book starts there and goes through that day and all the detective interviews and then the criminal investigation, and slowly what happened gets revealed, and the trial, but also every other chapter is kind of intertwined with my spiritual journey along the way, as about 24 crazy, amazing, beautiful things over the next year after Jesse's murder happened to me. Things I used to call signs, called them signs in the book. Now I just call them answers to a desperate, broken, middle-of-the-night hotel room prayer the night after she was killed to a God that I didn't believe really existed. And I asked himself to prove it to me, and then all kinds of things started to happen. And so that's what the book is about. It's just the facts. It's just my life for a year after Jesse's passing.
How involved is your wife with this whole process?
Joy's not involved. It's a balance for me. I have to watch out. She's a lot more normal than I am, and she is grieving a lot more like most moms and people I think would grieve when they lose a child. She doesn't like to talk about it a lot. She talks about it with me a lot, but she doesn't like to talk about it with strangers like I do. She doesn't feel compelled to do a mission like I do. I have to walk the line between answering my calling in life, my new calling, and minimizing my re-exposure of her and re-traumatizing her, because she's part of the story, and every time I'm in public, it draws some attention to her. So I have to watch that. She's not involved, but she's amazing and gives me her blessing, even though I've crossed the line too many times and re-exposing her. She continues to let me do this.
And everybody is different, right? And there's obviously a huge level of respect between the two of you. So, everybody deals with it in their own ways. You've taken it, you've, recognized that this was Jesse's mission and that this is now turning into your mission. You're located in the Milwaukee area, right? Has it expanded beyond the state of Wisconsin, the work that you do?
Well, last I checked a few months ago, about 5% of our social media followers are from other countries. Other countries on 5 different continents, and I believe that's because of the 4 made-for-TV documentaries that show on all the different continents. We get hundreds of messages from Ireland and New Zealand and Brazil, and I get messages in Spanish that I can't read every once in a while on Facebook. And I'm not under any delusions either that a Facebook post is going to shift culture in Australia. But I also hear the impact when people reply to us and know that we keep on, every time we outreach, every time we share the mission and the message, somebody's heart and mind gets touched. And it's another ripple in the pond. And, we're going for the aggregate effect. We have a local mission with a global vision, basically. So we do want to produce measurable change here locally, but we do have tentacles all over the world now also, which just blows me away. I think Jesse would be blown away.
Yeah, I mean, to get the outreach into different continents and other countries, that takes time, and you've been up and running for 4.5 years. So, that's huge.
And Julie, if I could, you said something earlier that was so important that I want to go back to.
Yeah.
You mentioned that people grieve differently.
Yep.
And that is so critical. Joy and I didn't know this when we sat on the couch between detective interviews hours after Jess was stolen from us. We didn't know this fact that 79%, or 4 out of 5 marriages, don't survive the loss of a child. But Joy turned to me on the couch that day, and she just kind of intuitively apparently knew that, because she said, honey, this is the kind of thing that can break people up. We have to stick together. And we both just knew that she just spoke truth, and we vowed to do that, to stick together, and so we are. But people do grieve differently, and it's critical for spouses. If I know some of your listeners are probably have suffered tragedies of their own, and the loss of a child is, it doesn't get much more intense than that and hard to survive than that. But any tragedy, it's important to understand that, for spouses to understand that the other spouse is going to grieve differently than you. I had to do something. Joy needs to process it in her own space with a little support from close loved ones and not talk about it with strangers. She doesn't need strangers coming up to her from all over town like happened in our town for years. And hugging her and looking deep in her eyes and asking her if she's okay, because it just re-triggers the whole thing 5 years later. Right. So really important to give space to however your partner grieves.
Yeah, and it's tough too, because obviously that community outreach is important, and it then becomes overwhelming sometimes. And, everybody means well, and people don't know what to do. And sometimes that simple gesture is too much,
The ridiculous, over-the-top outpouring of love from our town of Hartford that changed my life. It changed me forever. I saw Hartford responded to the worst in humanity with the best in humanity, and at a level I'd never seen before. And it was just like a white-hot outpouring of love for a long time, and it continues to this day. And you're absolutely right. People mean well. Everybody who comes up to us, literally thousands of people wish us well, pray for us, mean well, say good things to us, do things for us. It's unbelievable. And but it can be too much too. So it's important when supporting someone who suffered a big trauma to walk a fine balance between re-triggering and supporting. Mostly you just want to listen. You don't want to try to fix. You just want to listen and wait for them to bring it up.
You should incorporate some of this into the work that you do because, as important as the education, the motivation, and the inspiration to, the young minds that you're trying to reach, there's also this piece too that's important. And to hear it, I think it resonates with a lot of people.
There's a great organization called Parents of Murdered Children that I was referred to, and I actually never connected with them. I feel weirdly blessed and didn't need to. I just have been filled with a sense of purpose and an unexplainable peace and joy that balances the terrible pain. And I don't want probably half your listeners think I'm nuts right now and this guy's living on a cloud with, not dealing with, or this is a coping mechanism or something. I get that all the time. But I've really been blessed with the incredible pain, 100 times more painful. That I've had broken bones and broken relationships and broken dreams and a broken heart in life, like all of us. Never had anything that was 1/100th of the long-lasting intensity of this pain. But also with it, I've also found or been given a profound peace and joy. Don't know why I brought all that up. Maybe I was just supposed to today.
Well, it certainly has enriched our conversation here on Boston Outlook. We have just a few more minutes left. We're chatting with Dr. Buck Blodgett, again, author of A Message from Jesse and the founder of the Love is Greater Than Hate Project. The Love is Greater Than Hate Project.org is your website. What else do you want to make sure that our listeners are left here with this morning?
Hey, if I went to bed tonight and there was a whole bunch of new social media followers of our page from Boston, that would be really cool. On Facebook, we are the Love is Greater Than Hate Project. Love is, it's a greater than symbol. So it's the Love Greater Than Symbol Hate Project.
And can I clarify, that's the one that points off to the right? Because sometimes that's confusing to people.
Because love is not less than hate.
Right.
And that often gets written that way.
Right. It's confusing, those symbols. When's the last time you actually saw those? Maybe like 6th grade, right?
I'm so glad you said that. And then our website is ligth.org. That's short for Love is Greater Than Hate, ligth.org. And be careful because your device might autocorrect that to light.
Oh, yeah.
TH. And finally, the book is called A Message from Jesse, and it's on Amazon.com. And I never care to sell books, but I love the story. It's the whole story, and we get the best anecdotal stories of impact in people's personal lives from that particular media.
So short term for you and the organization, what are you thinking is kind of going to be the next couple of months for you as 2019 closes out?
Just keep doing what we're doing right now. Radio campaign, print campaign, presentations. I got a big presentation coming up in September. It'll be my very first one of the many hundreds was for 1,400 students at Hartford Union High School. I can't believe the principal said yes to a guy with no track record and put me in front of the whole school. And it just launched the whole project beautifully. And I'm going back for the first time because now we're launching our project at the school to produce measurable change. And we have all kinds of different prongs to that project. But the first piece is a school-wide assembly to create interest. So, and we're writing curriculum. Right now we have about we've been given time slots for 15 lessons that will do just mini lessons, 5 to 7 minutes in homerooms about every other week all year long that every student will see, and with powerful videos. And so that's what the next few months looks like.
A true inspiration, and I look forward to hearing the updates. We always love to have the updates again here on Boston Outlook, so there's always a spot for you when those things come up. We've been chatting with Dr. Buck Blodgett, again, the author of A Message from Jesse and the founder of the Love is Greater Than Hate Project. Thank you so much for your time, sharing your story, and spreading awareness around violence that, really it doesn't discriminate. So thank you for your time.
Can I quickly thank all of your listeners for listening? It's a huge gift to me and Jesse, and I believe victim, survivor, thrivers everywhere. And to you, Julie, for giving Jesse a platform and a voice for her mission and messages. Really great to be on with you today.
You got it. I look forward to future conversations. Like I said, let's